Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Secure the Seat Live. Happy Monday if you're watching us right now here on LinkedIn or we're streaming on Twitter and YouTube. Just want to say, hey, you could be anywhere on the internet right now and you're here with us. So I don't take that lightly. I just want to say thank you. We have a great show in store for you today. So no matter where you're streaming or watching us, make sure you hit us up in the chat, in the comments area, because I want to make sure you get your questions answered. It's not every day I'm in conversation with the president of Banfield Pet Hospital, Brian Garnish. So excited for him to be here and talk about those leadership practices, because I don't know about you, we need great leadership, good leadership role modeled today in the workplace going forward. And so it's important that we talk about that. Also, too, I know that the past week has been really hard for many of us. And so I just want to let you know, I've said it on other platforms that I use, but I stand with the AAPI community. We stand in solidarity and sending you love. If there's any way that I can personally be helpful outside of some of the things that I'm doing behind the scenes, please let me know that you have a brother and sister in me. and I'm sure that I speak for Brian as well. But without further ado, hit us up in the chat, tell us how you're feeling, and we're going to bring Brian to the stage. Hey, Brian. Good. I think you're on mute. There we go.
There we go. Hey, Minda, how are you?
Good to see you. How's it going?
Nice to see you. Thanks for having me. So excited to start the week this way.
Me too. We had such a great conversation on your Instagram Live, and I just was like, you know what, we got to get him over here and expand the conversation. So Brian, Tell everybody a little bit about you for those who may not be familiar with your work.
Sure. So I'm super excited to have the opportunity to lead Banfield Pet Hospital. And we're a chain of veterinary hospitals across the U.S. We're in 42 states. We have over 1,000 hospitals across the country. We have over 19,000 passionate associates who only want to make a better world for pets. So we have such a cool industry to be part of, and specifically everything that we've gone through with the pandemic, that need for companionship and that human-animal bond has never been stronger. So I have the opportunity to lead the Banfield team. I'm originally from the Midwest, and I've bounced around the country and just have an absolute passion for our associates, and culture is my top priority, and making a better world for people is what I'm solving for, and I have the opportunity to do that at Banfield.
Love it. Shout out to all the people who take their fur babies to
yes. Exactly. I mean, the role that the pets played in our lives over this last year has been unbelievable. I mean, personally, staying at home, working from remotely, my two cats, Ashton and Kenji, have meant the world to me. And to have that opportunity for all of our associates who truly are living their purpose to make a better world for pets has been awesome. So I know there's a lot of people listening that have pets, and we love all the pets. It's so good how important they've been in our lives.
Absolutely. I'm thankful for Banfield because I also am a pet mom of Boston, a French bulldog.
Yes.
And that's where, so you've been very, very helpful during the pandemic for me.
So good.
And if you're not following Brian to see his beautiful babies, we're going to drop his link in the chat so you can follow him on Instagram so you can see his babies.
The antics of these cats are unbelievable. And if they cooperate, I say cooperate because they run the show here. They'll probably run across the screen here in a few minutes. But everything from getting outside, opening doors, and they're a handful.
I hope they do. We need some extra guests today, so that'll be fun. If you're just joining us, I have Brian Garnish, the president of Banfield Pet Hospitals. We're talking about role modeling good leadership practices. So if you have any leadership questions, make sure you get them in the comments today. Brian, I want to ask you my first question. Often people say leadership should be managed from the top down. Do you subscribe to that ideology? Why or why not?
Well, I think leadership is at all levels throughout the organization. I think no matter your role in the organization, you have the responsibility as a leader to create the culture that you want for your peers to experience and for those that you lead. So I think it's incredibly important that all leaders role model the culture and that they want to create. And I think it's also very important to not just role model, but seeking out other leaders to understand what's working, what's different, what they're doing differently, so you can make sure that you're also growing as a leader. That curiosity that leaders can bring to the table is incredibly important. And I think, like, specifically for me, my role is to role model what I expect all of our leaders to do at Banfield. And while we're not 100%, I understand that. And I want, by the way, every leader to be their authentic selves. But like, what I won't negotiate on is culture not being the top priority and treating people very respectfully. And the way I think that can happen is by really creating that two-way dialogue. I like to refer to that as listening at scale, where you can truly invite people into the conversation. And when you can do that, you can hear what's on people's mind. And that's about creating that psychological safe space. And I think all leaders ought to do that. And I think from my standpoint, I want to role model that from the very top, and be clear on my expectations on what it means to be a leader, to bring culture to the forefront for us at Banfield.
Oh, I love that so much, Brian, because I mean, you said so much. You were preaching a mini sermon on a Monday, but I love what you said about, I want people to bring their authentic selves to work as long as it's not impeding upon the culture, right? Because I think so often people are bringing the version of themselves that's causing harm, right? And it's disrupting.
Oh my gosh. It was that, and they're bringing the version that the company wants. And I don't understand that, Minda. I have never understood that, where so many companies say, well, this is our culture and this is how we expect you to behave in the workplace. Who is a company to think and to say something like that? If I want you to be who you are, and that's what belonging is. So when I talk about culture being my top priority, the way culture comes to life at Banfield is really through, many ways. But an oversimplified approach is through culture is our equity, inclusion, and diversity journey. It starts with equity, inclusion, and diversity. And we change up, we don't call it D&I. We went to I and D initially. Why? Because inclusion's a choice. You choose to be inclusive or not. And when you can create that safe space, then it allows us to talk about our differences. And when we can talk about our differences, that equals understanding, which equals belonging. And when you can belong and be your authentic self at work, that's powerful. You shouldn't have to, well, I'm going to work and I have to act this way or dress this way or talk this way. There's nothing authentic about that. And I want to bring your authentic self out. Why? Because that's going to let everyone see who you are. And that's going to create a better team dynamic. And when our culture is about expressing yourselves and about inviting that conversation, that creates the authentic workplace. And so we have over 1,000 hospitals. If we can have over 1,000 authentic workplaces, that's powerful, because we're all united on making a better world for pets. And that ties into my culture of listening to people. And when you can listen to people, you're inviting people to be in the conversation, saying what's working, what's not working, and let's talk about it. And Minda, it's not always about getting a yes or giving everyone what they want. I mean, there's been many times in which we've told people we can't do that. But we can say we can't do that. Why? Because we're having the conversation, and having that conversation so powerful. And the final thing I'll just mention is, when you have that authentic conversation with people, that true two-way dialogue, the strategic direction of our organization is actually being driven by our associates' voice, and their voice on terms of what they're hearing from the consumer or client. And that is so powerful for us.
Oh, I love that so much, Brian. I wonder if there's a book in your future. I love that, because you said something else, listening at scale. And I think so many people have a hard time listening at scale. And so I love that so much. Another question that I wanted to pose, in the chat is going nuts. They're loving the conversation. Keep those questions coming. Brian, you have over 20 years of leadership experience. What are 3 guiding pillars or principles every leader should consider having in their career toolkit?
Well, I'll tell you what works for me. And I think this is the work that each leader really needs to do. I take leadership so importantly. It's so important. It's so important. I take it to really go deeper around, what does it even mean to be a leader, and how am I showing up, and how can I be better? This isn't just a job. This is a responsibility. And I spent a lot of time, and I continually just reflecting on what works or what doesn't work. And I think about how I lead, how I lead, and really is my leadership mindset. And it is, I lead with empathy, impatience, and impact. Empathy, impatience, and impact. And I'll explain that. That really ties back to my core values as well. What are my core values? Well, it's about impact. I have to make an impact in society. I utilize curiosity, that curiosity on like what can we do differently? What can be better? How can I learn more? But also, how can I learn what our consumers and clients want? How can I learn what our associates want and what they're experiencing? And then I'll use empathy again on the value side. So there's a little bit of overlap in terms of how I lead and my values. But what's important about that is it really comes back to me from a perspective standpoint. And this is the advice to your question. How does everyone really get the proper perspective to understand where they came from? How did that ground you as a leader? And then how do you test that today? And like, I think back on where I started, 16 years old, working at Walgreens, stocking shelves, sweeping floors, cashiering. Whatever the team asked me to do, I did it. And I remember being on the front lines, and when my voice was included, how that made me feel. When our store's voice was included, when our team's voice was included, how that made us feel. And also when questions or decisions were made on our behalf and we weren't included. So I remember what it feels like to be excluded. So it's one thing to say, I have perspective of working on the front lines and working my way up throughout the ranks at Walgreens that have led me to this job. But if I don't reflect on that and then work on that today to make sure that I stay connected to our front lines and I listen and utilize that curiosity to what's working, what's not working today, I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail our team, honestly, and all of our clients and all of our associates. Why? Because I can just, when I was 18, I remember this, but I need to make sure that I'm having that empathetic conversation and I'm having that immersive experience to understand what our people are experiencing today. So my advice is think about the perspective of where you came from and don't lose that. Remember, how did it make you feel? And then how do you test that today? Because the sign of a leader is, yes, it's leading a team through what the adversity and the challenges of today, but having that perspective of where you came from and what your people are experiencing is powerful. And that allows that empathy to really reign true and reign through so you can be a better and more effective leader. And so I think it really comes back to just the values of what you truly value as a person, and understanding what you value as a person is incredibly important to how you lead as a leader. And then that creates that leadership mindset. And mine is empathy, impatience, and impact. And finally, on that point is the impatience is every day we don't deliver, we're letting society down. And so that empathy is, again, where I came from and what our people are experiencing and how can I make a better world for our people. The impatience on we have to move faster because every day we don't, we're letting society down. And it's all in service of making an impact on society. And I think that's what every leader has to have their responsibility. It's not about your team. It's not about your organization. It's about impacting society.
Absolutely. And I think that's what, Brian, I think that's what so many leaders miss. And we are all have the capacity to lead. You don't have to have a title to do that, but the impact, right? We all can be chief impact officers in our organization. That's right. I love that so much. I want to take a couple audience questions. I see so many great questions, but Michelle had a good question about accountability. It says, how do you hold your leaders accountable for inclusive leadership? Great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. So when I talked about role modeling, I role model or what I expect around culture and making culture a top priority. And that ultimately comes down to how we listen to all of our associates. And I hold our leaders accountable for that. I hold them, okay, how are you connecting? I use Instagram. Instagram has been an amazing tool for me to connect with our associates. And on any given day, I'll get 10, 15, up to 20 messages from our associates about what's working or what's not working, or just even general comments or just kind of a banter back and forth. That's powerful for me. Why? Because people are reaching out and we're having some type of conversation. And when they experience something great, it's awesome to get an email of, hey, or a DM of, this is great, I love this is awesome, and that's great. And that leads to, well, I'm not experiencing this, or you always talk about culture and my leader's not talking about culture. And so when I hear those comments, I go right to the source, right to our field leaders to say, why is this not happening? Or how are you making sure this is happening? And so I do a lot of spot checking around what's working, what's not working. I'll do virtual visits at all levels throughout the organization, and they're just listening tours. What's working, what's not working? Are you hearing from your leader? How's your leader role modeling culture? How's your leader, your leader role modeling what inclusive leadership ought to be, et cetera, et cetera? And those questions creates that dialogue, and that dialogue becomes very, very powerful. We still have a long way to go, but I role model it. I expect our leaders to. It's not an option. It's like being a leader and making culture your top priority is not an option here at Banfield.
You know what? You're speaking my language, Brian, because I often, when I give talks or I'm consulting with a client, I say, you know what? They're like, oh, one leader doesn't do it well, or they're not comfortable talking about race. And I said, you know, it shouldn't be an option. Equity shouldn't be an option here.
Minda, it's not an option. And I want people to do it in their authentic way, and be authentic and do it your authentic way. So if Instagram's not your mode of conversation, that's fine. But then what is? It's not an option to not listen. And as a result, when you listen, you create that space to understand what's happening. And I think about everything that's been going on in our country. I'm so proud of our diversity resource groups to create that space. And one of the things that I'm excited about is not just creating the space for people to listen and learn to become an ally. We're beyond allyship. It's now about activism. It's about making action. It's about taking intentional choices on what are we going to do differently. And that empowerment is given to our leaders. We like to call that as being empowered. And the theme of our organization last year was be empowered, be passionate, and be here. Be empowered. As a leader, you're empowered to do what's right for your people. And if you're not going to do what's right for your people, then this may not be the right place for you. I want you to do what's right for you and do it in your way that's authentic. But leadership has a massive responsibility, and you've got to show up and take advantage of that. And it's using that passion. Be passionate is about using your passion and your purpose to connect as a leader to make a better world for your people. And being here is about Banfield being here for one another, for the pets that are counting on us, for the clients that need us, but more importantly for society, because society and people are looking at companies right now. And I believe Banfield ought to be a beacon for how a company ought to behave in society. And I want us to role model that at all levels. And I take that responsibility very seriously.
I love that so much. Listen, I see your questions in the chat, keep them coming. I know we have quite a few people who are in the chat talking about middle management, Brian. So what are your advice for those who are middle management, who want to influence the top? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Well, I love when at all levels when people reach out to ask questions, get advice, and I start off that way because don't feel like you're in this trap. I think sometimes when I hear middle management, it kind of feels like we get stuck of where we can go below or we can go up to that next level. Reach out to anyone in the organization. Find those that you want to listen and learn from, and just reach out. So specifically, when I think about us at Banfield, our entire senior leadership team is open and available, and we want to do we do a lot of informal mentoring, official mentoring, but also sponsorship. And at the end of the day, no matter your role, it's about two things in any business. It's about leading a team, and it's about delivering consistent results. And when you can deliver the what and the how, so the what are going to be your results, the how is how you lead people. When you deliver the what and the how, you'll get noticed for that. But don't just sit back and rest on your laurels. Make sure that you're also not just having, well, my immediate supervisor is my sponsor, or they're the one talking about me in the next conversation. Don't take any of that for granted, and don't expect someone to tell your own story. Tell your own story. And the way for you to do that is find those in the organization that you want to learn from, that you can see as a role model, and reach out. And if you have the right culture, the best leaders will welcome that, and they not only encourage it, they welcome that. When they welcome that, that forms that great relationship, and then you get those nuggets and insights, and then you can be an even more effective leader through your peer group and such.
Great advice, Brian. I love that. One of the questions that I had for you, bouncing back into our questions, is as a leader in the 21st century, and you kind of touched on this a little bit and beyond, being able to lead diverse teams is essential. Can you talk to our audience today about the importance of being a culturally competent manager?
Absolutely. It's the most important thing that a leader can do is create that proper representation amongst their team and amongst their leadership team and amongst the organization. And it needs to be represented throughout at all levels. And that is so important. The cultural demographic, excuse me, the cultural demographic shift that's happening in this country right now is changing. And if our teams aren't reflective of what's happening, we're just completely disconnected. We're missing the mark, and that is not okay. And so being declarative on building a great team is about culturally competent care, and it's about having proper workforce representation. And I look at our leadership team. It's one thing to say something, Minda, and so many people say one thing and they don't do something else, or they don't actually reflect that. And when I look at our leadership team, the senior leadership team at Banfield, the 8 individuals on our team, we have 5 female, 3 male. We have two Black. We have 1 Indian. We have a very strong diversity set of people, diversity of thought, diversity on all levels. We have someone from Europe. We have someone from Canada. I mean, the perspectives that people can provide are incredibly important. And if I don't have that on my team, how can I talk about something or expect that? And it's about finding the best talented people that also represent and happen to be very strong representation of society. And so that constant excellence of what we expect is important to have on your team. And when you have that, then you are able to bring so many other perspectives together.
I love that so much. And I think it's so important too, because if we're talking about diversity, if we're talking about belonging, then it's really important that the people, out in the field, on the ground, that they see that reflected in their leadership. And so that just means so much more. And so I thank you for your honesty and your being so candid, and shout out to everybody who's just engaging. We appreciate you. The show could be nothing without your support. So thank you for chiming in and being present on a Monday. Brian, every single guest of mine, I ask them bonus questions because I am a lover, and you've read the memo, so you know I love rap lyrics.
Yes, love it.
So, well, first off, do you eat? I'm a lover of grits and rap lyrics, Brian. Do you eat grits?
I worked and lived in the South, so absolutely.
Good. And how do you like when you were eating your grits in the South? How did you like to eat them?
Cheese, cheddar cheese.
Okay, see, I knew we were friends for a reason, right? So I have to ask, I know your team is probably anxiously awaiting this question too, but what is your favorite rap lyric and why?
Wow. Well, this is a tough question because there's so many options. And so growing up, well, first of all, I'm a huge music fan, and I just love all types of music. And I had taken a lot of music classes in college, and it was just so awesome. And I love it. And it's so therapeutic for me. And I love just not just listening to the beats and the lyric, but the lyrics and understanding what does it mean. So growing up, rap and alternative music were my 2 favorite genres. So I had to go through my library, my Rolodex here of like what was I gonna pick, and it was easy. It was easy because Outkast is my absolute favorite, by the way. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, Kendrick Lamar can be cool, and it's so great to see him winning the Pulitzer for an album, and just how beautifully he writes. And his whole album is a story. It's just great. And I mean, I can just like, maybe I could do something from Lizzo or Mary J. Blige. Here's what I selected. And I think this ties into what I was talking about from my mindset and my values around making an impact. So Childish Gambino, I have 2 lyrics for you. First is from the song Zombies. And he starts off, all I see is zombies walking around all of us. And why? Because we have so many people, Minda, that are going through the motions right now that aren't actively part of the conversation. They're just playing the role. They're just going through the day, but not really understanding the impact that they can make, and not really participating in the conversation of being the change that needs to happen. And then the second song from Childish Gambino, the lyrics are from the song Time. Running after something, but I don't know what. Am I running to? Too afraid to stop. 100 miles an hour. With no seatbelt on. Time is everlasting. I can't wait that long. and I can't wait that long. Time is everlasting, and I can't wait that long for us to not have the right conversations, to be the beacon for how companies and leaders ought to behave in society. We're at a critical point right now where these conversations that are happening, it just feels like rhetoric from corporations and so many leaders, but it's about making sure that everyone has a seat at the table and we have the proper workforce representation and our teams are role modeling the right behaviors. And those lyrics just really get at me for how I lead with empathy and patience and impact. And time is everlasting, but we all can't wait that long because society is calling on us to make change.
Woo! Get the tambourines out. Yes. You came through with the Childish Gambino, Brian. I love both of those. And it's so timely for that because we can't wait, right? Inclusive leadership can't wait till next year, can't wait till the next thing that happens, breaking news. It needs to start today and it takes action. So thank you. I know most of us are going to be listening to some Childish Gambino later today as we get our work done.
So good. So good.
The other question I wanted to ask you, everybody has the capacity to lead, as I said before, and we have so many leaders here with titles, with unofficial titles, all the things. What is one piece of advice you would give everybody on the call and those who will watch later in the week of how to make the workplace better than they found it?
Be the leader that you want to be, that you're striving to be, and do it in a way that whatever change you want, I think it's the old quote of, be the change that you want to see. It's just so true. If we're not experiencing the right culture, it's easy to be critical of the leadership that we work for or that we see in the organization. But what are you going to do differently? So it truly comes, be the change that you want and show up stronger, show up differently. And if it's not the right culture and environment, you can always find a different culture and environment. But if you're going to leave your company and you change environments, are you going to act differently in the next situation? If you say yes, then why would you not do it now? And so we often get stuck in the age of standardization of what we always experienced and how people want us to do. But we should unlock the personalized approach that we want us to have for ourselves. So do that now. And the more we do that, we take personal accountability for our own behaviors. And when we take personal accountability for our own behaviors, we can show up more powerfully. And no one can take that from us. You still may change organizations, you may change positions, but you're being true and authentic to yourself. And that's the thing that I can't live without, is being inauthentic to myself.
Woo. This has been so good, Brian. We're going to drop your LinkedIn page here so everybody can go and follow you on LinkedIn, because I know you have some new best friends that are singing your praises here in the chat. So I want to make sure that they can stay connected with you. This has been so good. Please share this with all of your leadership. Share it with your friends, because we need to keep modeling what good looks like, right? None of us are getting it perfect, but we're trying to get better than yesterday, better than the last hour, And so it's so important that people see what good looks like. And some of us might work in spaces where it's not being modeled the best. And so sometimes you have to see it to believe it. And so, Brian, I appreciate how you show up in this world. We got time for one last question from the audience. I seen one about coworker resentment. Yes, leadership is often given to smart and have seniority, people who have seniority, but not natural leaders. How can you practice change without causing coworker resentment? I think that's a very important question.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever really been worried about coworker resentment, because I've always been clear on who I am, and I've done that work on, like, what are my values? What do I stand for? What's the impact I want to make? And I've failed many times. I've learned so many lessons over the years, but I've always wanted to be authentic to myself, and I've always focused on that what and how. I'm responsible for, these are my measures, no matter what role I had, and this is what you need me to do. So, okay, good. We're going to deliver best in class results, and we're going to have highly engaged teams, and I'm going to take care of people. I'm going to develop people. I'm going to promote people. I'm going to sponsor people. And so I was never worried about that coworker resentment. And I'm sure it happened, but I can't control, I'm not responsible for other people's feelings when I believe I'm doing the right thing for taking care of my team, for role modeling the values of the company, being clear on my personal values and delivering that what and how. And if someone else has that resentment, that's on them. That's not on me. And I believe in role modeling that leadership, and then that's allowed me to get those opportunities. I think the other thing I would mention is I've always said yes, 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 yes. Any opportunity, yes, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. Because if I'm sitting back hoping someone's going to give me that opportunity, then my future is in someone else's hands, and I don't want that. I want to be the owner and the driver of my career. So that's kind of how I've always approached it. Is we all have our goals and measures and et cetera. And I can do the best job of leading a team. And when I always think about diversity across my entire career, we've always had diverse teams. And I believe in inclusion, and I believe inclusion and diversity will always win. And that's how I've done it. And if there's some resentment, then hey, that's on them. I'm not responsible for their feelings.
Yep, absolutely. And I think too, if you're sitting somewhere and you've hoped to ascend to leadership and it hasn't happened because people have certain relationships, it hasn't been equitable, don't allow yourself to have that energy of resentment that the company didn't choose you. This is where you get to decide, hey, is this the place for me, right?
Hey, Minda, absolutely. Well, I've changed companies a couple times, and it's because if it wasn't going to work because they valued something else, okay, got it. I'm going to deliver the best result through people and diverse teams. And if it's not going to be there, great. Thank you. You made a decision. I'm good with that because I don't know that I want to be part of that group then. I want to go where I can truly be free to be the leader I am and unapologetic about that. And I think it's great because sometimes you see that culture. If it's not the right one, why would you want to be part of that?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, thank you everybody who participated. I know that you're enjoying this conversation. We're going to post it so you can watch it on the replay, but we're going to drop Brian's Instagram in the chat. We're going to drop his LinkedIn so you can follow on both platforms. Brian, I want to give you the final words. Any thoughts to our audience today as they go into the rest of the work week?
Well, again, thank you all for joining, and Minda, thank you for having me. I love our conversations, and I could just talk to you for hours upon hours upon hours. It's so awesome. So you're doing fantastic work. So keep going, keep going, keep going. And really for anyone here, this conversation is not over. So when I talk about listening at scale and inclusion as a growth strategy, reach out. Let me know how I can help you. Let me know what I can do to help you. Happy to answer any questions. Happy to mentor. Happy to sponsor. I just want to make sure that I am doing my part to make a better world for society. So for everyone out there, keep going, stay focused, do the work to understand, like, what is it that you are when you're at your best? What is it to be authentic, and make sure that you don't ever squash that. Be your authentic self and find the opportunity that can give you that best opportunity for you to make the biggest impact, not only for yourself, but society as well.
Oh, awesome. Thank you again, Brian. And thank you for supporting me. I mean, we didn't even know each other months ago, and you read the memo. You reached out to me and invited me onto your link or your Instagram live show for us to talk about similar topics. And so I just thank you for seeing me and seeing the importance of having these conversations and being a good role model. We'll see you next Monday right here on LinkedIn Live. Make sure that you share it with somebody else and keep securing your seat. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.